So I know that there has previously been an effort to try to make sure that the department's policies are articulated in the U.S. Attorney's Manual. Is there an intention that this will find its way into the USAM?
So it's now called the Justice Manual. I always forget too. The U.S. But the Justice Manual, they moved the U.S. Attorney Manual. That we now call it the Justice Manual because it's supposed to reflect policies that cover the entire department. The decisions about what documents and policies go into that broader manual rests with the Deputy Attorney General. Folks probably saw the news. We've got one Deputy Attorney General on the way out, one on the way in. I think that is a question. I think that my folks have done a good job in putting this document together. I think it's an important question whether or not it ought to be imposed on the department writ large. I think probably the appropriate course is for this document to get out there, for it to be looked at by folks like you. We're always open to feedback and commentary from the outside, and then we think about whether or not to refine this document further as part of the process of deciding whether or not to make it the policy of the department as opposed to, as it stands now, the policy of the criminal division. I get to set the policy for the criminal division, but the guy above my head gets to set it for the whole department.
Sure, okay. And you mentioned in your remarks that there was training today at the department. Tell us a little, this is a room full of people who spend their days thinking about how to provide ethics and compliance training to their workforces. I'm sure it's of interest to folks to hear about what the agenda was, how it was put together.
Sure. So the genesis of this was when I came in my role, I decided that we needed to make a little bit of a change in the criminal division. I thought that having a single person who was the repository of all of the ethics and compliance knowledge in the criminal division, while a valuable tool, and the person who had that position previously did a wonderful job in that role, that it was, as a management matter, it made more sense in the long run for us to both hire for compliance expertise, not in every single trial attorney who we hire in the fraud section or MLRs, but certainly to look for that in our hires, and that we also ought to train our prosecutors fairly regularly in this area because compliance is such an integral part of virtually every corporate resolution these days. It made sense for us, for the long-term strength of the criminal division, that we have more attorneys who are better steeped in these principles and these subjects. So what we decided to do was put on a compliance training symposium, which happened today. I opened it up this morning. The first half of the training involved simply getting prosecutors together to do what I called getting on the same page. And so we had the senior leadership of the division in the fraud section, from the money laundering and asset recovery section, but we had 22 U.S. attorneys' offices represented, lawyers from the CFTC, the SEC, civil frauds, and even the serious fraud office in the UK sent 5 lawyers over. I don't know whether they just wanted to be in Washington in the springtime, but they sent 5 folks. And so all of our partners sent folks to sit, and the first part of the morning was dedicated entirely to a discussion among prosecutors. And so they talked about the prosecutor's role in assessing corporate compliance programs. And we had very senior attorneys who had done a lot of corporate resolutions talking about their experience in assessing compliance programs in the course of those resolutions, the challenges that they faced, particularly as younger attorneys, the things that confounded them, the things that they thought they knew that they didn't know, but to try to set the tone for this is why this is important. And then again, we had a second panel that was more lessons learned, where we focused specifically on the things that these career senior prosecutors had learned in the course of doing cases like this and why compliance is important. The afternoon was dedicated to bringing in folks from the outside, mostly from in-house legal departments and a couple of folks who have served as monitors, to get their perspective. And what I told our folks was, these are very accomplished, smart people, very experienced people with a lot to teach you. They have an important message. You should listen to it. It's a perspective. Take some of it with a grain of salt, because they are the folks who are typically on the other side of the table of you and of us as prosecutors. But I thought it was critically important that we hear from the corporate community and the outside world, the things that they value, the things that confound them, so that we had a more fulsome discussion. And I thought that that would be the best thing for our young prosecutors to hear, because you don't often get a chance in that setting to hear what folks like that have to say. It's usually in the adversarial process, where you're sitting across the table from one another trying to hash out a resolution. And so we had the inside panel in the morning and the outside panel in the afternoon. And this is something for as long as I'm there, and I hope it will be enduring after I leave, that in the spirit of kind of continuous improvement and trying to stay on top of the constantly evolving compliance landscape, that we'll do this at least annually in the criminal division, certainly while I'm there, and hopefully after I'm gone.